Greetings, welcome to OG Foundation, capital of the sovereign state of Velodium. I am your host, Sovereign Non of Velodium, and today I'm going to do a walk and talk. And if I'm lucky, we'll go with the boys. There's been a lot of snow. Come on, boys, let's go. Come on, let's go this way. Come on. See if they'll come. I want to address two main questions. Come on, boys. Come on this way. Good boy, Benny. Check it out. I got stark patches. Stark patch. I'm a bearskin. Come on, boys. Alright, so this is partially in response to Candace Owens' video from last night. But I'm going to address two questions. Number one, is Candace Owens an enemy? And number two, is Vermont Zionist? So, come on, boys. Good boys. We're going to have a quick cut right here to respect the privacy of a neighbor. Okay, so, hold on, there's a gate here I gotta open. So, for the response part of the video, so, adjust this, and this will be difficult. I probably won't be able to smoke, because I can't talk and smoke at the same time. I love walking with the boys and smoking my backy, but it doesn't work so well with the walk and talk, so I'll put the pipe away. So, one of the things that Candace talked about in her last episode, which I guess would be a Wednesday, in her criticism of Zionism, she says that people don't have a right to create their own state. So, this is kind of the fundamental right that makes Vermont what it is, that all people have a right to create their own state. And so for Candace to oppose that, she's essentially opposing my fundamental ideology, which in a way makes her an enemy. And I have said lots of good things about Candace, but it's not part of a cult of personality. And if she's going to take a position which is directly opposed to everything that represents Vermont and what I'm all about, then I got to do a response. So this is the response. So in the original Constitution of Vermont, if you've been watching, you've probably heard me say this many times, but Article 17, I'm born on the 17th. The start of the new year in the Chinese calendar is on the 17th. Vermont's Constitution was in 1777, and 17 is just a resonant number. Anyways, Article 17 states that all people have a right to create their own state. That's what I've done here, creating OG Foundation, and therefore my entire livelihood rests upon the right of all people to create their own state. So I have to disagree vehemently with Candace Owens saying that all people don't have a right to create their own state, because they do. Not just groups of people, but individual people have a right to create their own state. So she was referencing it, criticizing Zionism, saying that Israel doesn't have a right to create its own state. So first of all, I want to get, the boys are leading me right now. If I could switch this, if I had a nice selfie stick, I could flip it around and then give you the view ahead of the boys, but they're leading the way right now. But you'll see them in the rear view mirror when I inevitably pass them. So, I would say, like, pro-Zionist people would say that the Jews have a right to create their own state. And that's what Zionism represents, is just the Jews creating their own state. So I would disagree, first of all, with the definition of Zionism being the Jews creating their own state. So, a little bit of history, and it's windy, hopefully it doesn't mess up the sound. But Israel is created by the Rothschilds, and the purpose of Israel is not to give Jews their own state. The purpose of Israel is to create a bulwark in the East Mediterranean to make sure that the Islam remains divided so that the central banking powers can control the world. So it's a project of world domination, and it's not in the interest of the Jews, it's actually against Jews, because the idea is to make this kind of pit bull, mad dog kind of state that does all these terrible things, and then all the bad things can be blamed on the Jews, even though it's all done in the name of the central banks. So, first of all, I'll just say I don't disagree that Jews have a right to create their own state. Everybody has a right to create their own state. Any religion, any group of people, any single person. However, that right doesn't negate the rights of other people. So you can't just go and take other people's property and kill other people to create your own state, because that's out of you're violating other people's rights in order to establish your state. So you can make your own state. So basically, I'm going on a big circle, and it's gonna start. Hey girl, how's it going? This sweetheart here, she just loves the goats. She always comes up and says hi to the goats. This is. Hey girl, how's it going? Oh, you're so beautiful. Hey. This is Rocate, and then that's his sister, Strident. You get horsies? She's just beautiful, her hair blowing in the wind. What do you think, boys? Alright, we'll get back on track. We've got lots of snow to go through. We've got like 1.5 feet of snow here. So the boys are getting a good workout going through it. And they gotta stay in my footsteps. So yeah, I'm going in a circle. I'm gonna start leaving. When I'm leaving, you're gonna be disagreeing with me, saying negative things. Oh, you disagree with Candace. Oh, you agree with the Zionists. Oh, you're gonna say Vermont might be Zionist. So if I'm going to give you some things about Vermont. So when Vermont was created, a mob of people, the Green Mountain Boys, led by Ethan Allen, they would go around, and Vermont was largely funded in its early days by taking the property of loyalists and redistributing it and then selling it for the good of the state of Vermont, which this here Stark flag is the flag of the country of Vermont. So, in some ways you could say, oh, that sounds a lot like what the Zionists are doing in Israel. So, we're going to draw parallels, and then I'm going to compare and I'm going to contrast. So, what Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys would do, they would say that you have to swear an oath of loyalty to Vermont. And if you're not going to be loyal to Vermont and you're going to be loyal to the foreign crown, then they basically get run out of town, and then they take their property and sell it, or they send them to the mines if they're active traders on behalf of the crown. So what the crown represents is a fraud. So they don't have any actual claim to the land, and they don't have any, because they didn't establish it rightfully. They just by force said they own the land, and then by that dictate then sold rights, and then they just kind of grandfathered this kind of great con into the whole structure. So what Vermont represents is opposite of that, anti-imperialism and the right of the people, the sovereign individuals, and then collectively having the right to represent themselves, to be free from rulership from the foreign imperial powers. And so the idea of imperialism is what the crown represents, and the crown serves powers like the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds actually directly, one of their first kind of agents as they were establishing themselves, worked to hire the Hessian and different German mercenaries that were then sent to fight on behalf of the crown against the colonists. So at the Battle of Bennington, which is where victory was established and the Stark flag first flew, many of those forces, those German mercenaries that were defeated, they were directly hired by the Rothschilds on behalf of the crown, and then the crown paid them and the Rothschilds took a fee for that. So the idea of imperialism, so the Rothschilds also create Israel with the help of the British Crown. The British Crown being kind of the mercenaries on behalf of the Rothschilds to create the modern day state of Israel. And so rather than the term Zionism, I like to use the word imperialism. And they basically mean the same thing. It's top-down rule, where a singular sovereign rules over all the land and all of the people. Top down by force, while denying the rights of the people and ultimately the land and nature and everything, because the top-down system claims it all. So similarities between what Vermont did and what the Zionists in Israel did is kind of taking land and property and basically redistributing it. However, differences are that in Vermont's case, all you had to do was swear an oath to Vermont, and then your rights and your land is defended by the local sovereigns, the Green Mountain Boys. And the people who don't do that are colonists. They're not sovereign, and they are subject to the crown. The crown's claim originally is invalid, and so they're perpetrating a con and subjugating people. So what the Vermonters are doing, even though it's a somewhat similar act of taking property and ultimately land rights, they're doing it rightfully by the local people, the sovereigns confronting the subjects and refusing to be subjugated by the same crown that the subjects are subjugated by. So in contrast, what the Zionists in Israel do, the Palestinians can't just make a pledge of loyalty to Israel. It's a religious ethno-state. Some will say it's an ethnicity, some will say it's a religion, but it can't be an ethnicity because the Rothschilds aren't ethnically Semitic, but they share the same religion of Judaism. So it's a religious state, it's not an ethno-state. And you can't necessarily just convert to Judaism. The Palestinians can't just convert to Judaism, whether or not they want to. So just their very nature, and them being there, having the preceding claim and having it taken by the Zionists is a contrast with what happened in Vermont. So I'm getting close to the apex of how far we're going, and even though I haven't walked very far because the snow is so deep, it's a good workout. So Candace's whole argument is that the people don't just have a right to create their own state, which they do have a right to create their own state. And if the Jews or the Rothschilds or whoever, if they want to create their own state and they establish it in a country that isn't already occupied, they're not disenfranchising other people in doing so, then they certainly have a right to do so. But that's not what was established. Before they created Israel, the Zionists, like Theodore Herzl and other people, they were looking at various different places to establish the state of Israel. And one of them was Madagascar, and there were other places as well. But the reason it got established in the modern day place of Israel, in Palestine, is for strategic reasons. Like I said, both to disenfranchise the Muslims, as well as to there's trade route reasons why the Eastern Mediterranean is important, which gets down to maritime monopolies and maritime trade. So there's two big differences in power, the maritime powers and the land-based powers. So for a long time, when the Silk Road was dominating the trade routes between the old world and kind of the new world, or East Asia through Central Asia and then to Europe and everything, the Muslims benefited from it because they were the middlemen of that trade, and also the Khazarians, who are the predecessors of the Rothschilds, the Ashkenazis. They got a lot of their wealth by being in the area around Georgia, which is an important trade route along basically for goods to go from Asia and then to cross over the Caspian Sea, over the Black Sea, and then trading it to the European powers. But then once they broke out of just the Mediterranean seaways and controlled Portugal and all of that trade, then they could establish their trade routes over the ocean and around Africa and basically bypass the Silk Road. And then there's a strategic imperative to disrupt the overland Silk Road, and so that the maritime trade routes could monopolize that trade. And a lot of the wealth is generated either by shipping, by trade, by mercantilism, or via warfare. And then it's consolidated through banking interests. So, getting back to the main focus, is Vermont Zionist? No, it's not Zionist, and it's anti-imperial. So by equating Zionist with imperialism, Vermont is anti-imperial fundamentally. Israel is pro-imperial. And so Vermont represented a big threat to the imperial powers, which is why they had to assassinate Ethan Allen with arsenic. And I've done a lot of research into that. I had to track the entire family trees of the Sherwoods, who, interestingly, go all the way back to Sherwood Forest in Nottingham, which Robin Hood is all about. And there's Sherwoods on both sides, the British side and the colonial side, and a lot of them are Masons. And I still haven't really figured out exactly who killed Ethan Allen, but I imagine it was one of the people who lived on the island by Ebenezer Allen. I don't know if Ebenezer Allen was connected with the plot or not, but I'm quite confident he was poisoned by arsenic. So, what else is going on? I'm reading a new book now. It's another Clavel book about the 1960s in Hong Kong and power struggles there. And one of the companies that they talk about, they call the Rothwells, and it's just like a character name for the Rothschilds, who are in competition in that book with the Strawns, who are basically a Scottish trading family clan company. And if you look into the origins of the Masons, and you read Thomas Paine's on the origin of the Masons, it goes back to the Druids and all the way back to Samaria and the pyramids and Masons for thousands of years. Benny's getting ahead. It's too thick of snow, buddy, for you to... no, you can do it. Look at these boys. Go ahead, boys, you can do it. Lead the way. Or follow me. And it's just fascinating to see these different power struggles. Trump is connected to the Scottish Rite and seemingly the Masons, but he also works on behalf of the Zionists because his whole cabinet is Zionist. And then there's all these things coming out with the Epstein files and all sorts of awful satanic things that they're doing. And there's a lot I don't understand. I claim ignorance, and I claim to be a fool because I don't know, and I acknowledge that I don't know. What I do know is that all people do have a right to create their own state. And that's what I'm all about here. Is Candace an enemy? No, she's not an enemy. But when she takes positions that are directly opposed to the fundamental rights of the people, then she is directly opposed to the truth and to everything that I stand for. And if she continues on that track, I'll just tune her out. And she's very closely aligned with the Catholic Church and this whole Catholic agenda. I'm just not in harmony with it all. And the Catholic Church is imperial, just like the crown is imperial. And they both have ties to Zionists, but it seems that the Catholic Church had a break with them in the 13th century, which is what the Friday the 13th is all about, when they betrayed the Catholic Church betrayed the Knights Templars and took all of their wealth and their property, which seems to be directly related to the initiation of the Masons. But that might not be exactly true, but that's what I think is true. But another interesting thing is that, for example, the Masons, their loyalty would be primarily to the Masons, to their brotherhood, and not to nation states. So there's many different cases in the Revolutionary War where they would do unstrategic things and basically demonstrate, the leaders of the armies of both sides demonstrate to their loyalties to the Masons above the people that they're supposedly fighting for. So, like George Washington and Ben Franklin, Masons, and they also are aligned with the French. And the Rothschilds have a hold on the French government and have for a long time. And so it's kind of like I don't know, it's kind of confusing basically, because then when there's two different political parties, the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans, John Adams, the second president, creates this Sedition Act where the Democratic Republicans are basically seen as seditious because they're criticizing the Federalist government. And the Democratic Republicans seem to be aligned more with the French, whereas the Federalists are, well, I don't know, the Federalists are aligned with a strong central government and with the foreign cabal of bankers. And so it gets confusing because it's all divide and rule, and basically at the top they're all serving these cabal of bankers, and there's like no independence. So if you fall into this kind of left-right paradigm, you always lose, because both competing power groups of imperial forces are against the fundamental interests of the people. And everything that I'm all about is the bottom-up power of the people, the sovereign individuals, and our rights to represent ourselves, to be sovereign, to not have overlords, to create our own state or states, and to collaborate in doing so. Oh, there's a dog barking. I think that's the neighbor came out after I went out. The dog barking has disrupted my focus. So, basically, if the Zionists weren't disenfranchising the Palestinians, stealing their property, and killing them, then they'd have every right to create their own state and call it whatever they want, even if they're calling it Israel. Even though Israel ultimately is 13 tribes, and Jews only represent 1 or 2 tribes. The tribes that didn't rebel against the Moloch worshipping priests, whose covenant with God is one of child sacrifice, and who they call a god is ultimately a demon who's all about power, and via these sacrifices they can maintain, the priestly class can maintain their power. And all of their original knowledge is all coming out of Egypt, where they had all sorts of great ability to record history, and the Masons as well. My glasses are fogging up. I'm like hot. Wearing way too many layers on this walk. I'm sweating. And it's a skill to be able to walk and talk and keep a train of thought. And I'm not so good at that skill, but I'm practicing. Hey Starbuck, how's it going? See if I defogged yet. Hey girl, do you want to say hi to the audience? You popular, photogenic girl? Oh, I love you. You come say hi. Oh, I don't want to be on camera. Oh, everything up. You gotta come closer. Oh. Hey Sappos, how you doing? Great horsies. Alright boys, we're continuing on our way. Hey Odin, how's it going? The horses are actually more interested in the goats than they are of me. But the goats are more interested in me than they are of the horses. And of course you are more interested in the goats and the horses than me. So what else can I talk about that is interesting? Well, I'm kind of very clear about my whole strategy, about everything I represent. There's lots of things I like about Candace, but the whole alignment with the Imperial Catholics, I'm not for at all. So it seems that the Catholics have this big beef with the Zionists. I'm pretty sure that goes back to the schism with the Knights Templars. And the whole promotion of Catholicism and the religious hierarchy and all of that is just not resonant for me. But she also will criticize priests and Catholicism every once in a while, so I don't see her as an ideologue, but she's definitely influenced largely by her husband, but just via the Catholic Church. And who do I see as allies? Who's an ally? People, independent people who stand up for their rights. So this is what I see as a winning strategy, and what I want to see is I just want to see people fly the Stark flag, which is this flag, which is the flag of the country of Vermont, and then the people can either create their own state or can align with the community or with another state. So the idea here, so OG Foundation is the state that I've created and has my Elodium stake to it, and then I've staked OG Foundation to Elodium, which is an idea, but it represents a nation state because it's a group of people. And essentially the idea is to organize and people to cooperate to defend their rights, to defend their property, to defend their rights. Because without organization, we are subject to annihilation by the various imperial forces, which they pretty much always compete with each other. But sometimes in their competition, they will agree to eliminate the things that threaten both forces, which is always the bottom-up movements, which there's different examples of that throughout history, but the reality is that most of them get stamped out by overwhelming force. But you gotta be willing to face that fate in order to stand up for your own rights, because we all die ultimately, and you might as well live a life embracing your rights and standing for them than living in fear and cowering and whatnot. So we've fulfilled a whole loop here on this walk and talk, and now we're heading home. We got to bring it home, and I think I'm going to get some more drone footage. Oh, I see. It was the different dog that's out yapping. So I've got more of these patches, these Stark flag patches, Vermont patches. I'm gonna, and I have extra flags too, Stark flags. And so I'm gonna sell those for like merch. If anyone wants a flag or a patch. You can order them yourselves, or you can buy them from me if you're interested. And then I also have shirts for OG Foundation and Elodium, and if people want shirts, they can get the shirts too. But the real way that we unite is via our common ground, which is our rights. And I'll end this talking about Elodium. So Elodium means owned absolutely by occupation and defense without an overlord. So consider if everyone claimed their property as their Elodium, what that would mean is they would reject any overlords, which means they wouldn't pay any taxes. And the only tax that's rightful, and that's in the Constitution, is that all people have to contribute to the militia to defend their state, because the militia is necessary to defend the free sovereign state. And so that's the responsibility of all people in their state, is to serve as that force to defend the state in the militia. And the only tax that's rightful is for the people who aren't in the militia, that they can be taxed to support the people who are serving in the militia. And then, as far as the whole aspect of the Green Mountain Boys, how they would basically disenfranchise the subjects of the imperial powers of their property, that's not unlawful. That's actually an act of liberation. And if you look at what's going on with the United States, how it's dominated by imperialist forces, it's an imperialist force and it serves the interests of a foreign imperialist force. That being, whether it's the Zionists now or the Rothschilds in the last administration or whoever, they're not serving the people. And the whole left-right paradigm is just part of that subjugation mechanism. So the way to victory is for people to stop voting and stop paying taxes and just withdraw themselves and their property from that system of subjugation, and demonstrate that. I would recommend by flying the Stark flag. And if everyone, like imagine you drive down the road in Vermont and every house has a Stark flag out front and no one's paying any taxes and the free market reigns, and then whenever foreign imperial powers try to get a foothold in Vermont, we just drive them out. And then we have organization amongst the sovereign people and an organized militia to defend ourselves. Then we can all have our own property absolutely without any taxes, and yet have our liberty secured by recognizing our common interests and our own rights and whatnot. And so I hope that Candace comes around to recognizing the truth, that all people have a right to create their own state, and that Catholicism is an imperial power, and it's not a general good at all, but it has an awful history of domination and subjugation. And pagans aren't bad. It's just about appreciating nature, that the Son of God is the sun that's in the sky, that is the life force which keeps us all alive, and it's not something to deride, even though the Catholics will deride it. And the fact that the Masons basically see the sun as center to their thing is a good thing, but I just think the various occult groups and hierarchies tend to fall into corruption and whatnot. So that's about the end of it. We're heading back into the OG Foundation. You can see the Stark flag flying. I'm going to get some more drone footage because it seems like a good day for it, and I'm going to end this walk and talk. So all power to the people and their rights, and down with imperialism.